feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the DaneMoore NBA podcast. We're brought to you by Prize Picks. Coming at you Tuesday morning. It's January 27th after the Wolves' 25-point win over the Golden State Warriors on Monday night. Balances out the 26-point loss the day before.
That's
Even it out.
works.
It's a tie. It's a tie. The Wolves snapped their 5-game losing streak. I got Wolves beat writer Chris Hine from the Star Tribune here with me. Hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, Dane. How you doing?
I'm all right. You know, honestly, these 8:30 games are, and then you like
They're
needing to
killers.
sleep
Yeah,
and then get back up and do stuff. And we got 2 of them this week.
I know. It's not great for the sleep patterns.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, no.
I'm going to Memphis for those 2 games, and you could only there's only 2 direct flights to Memphis.
Yes.
There's a 9 a.m. and then there's like a 8:30 p.m. So
It's
we're going
which
on the
one
9
do you
a.m.
take. Yeah.
And it's gonna
I
be
remember,
after
I remember
that
that
Thunder
from the
game.
playoff series. What was it, 4 years
Yeah.
ago at this point? It's like the flight options are
Not
less
as bad
than-
as
less
Oklahoma
than
City.
thrilling. Oh, that was the worst.
That was
the worst. That was the absolute worst. It was either you fly direct at like 8 o'clock at night, or you have to connect through Atlanta or
Well, we did that. It was like a
wherever.
7 a.m. I think was the one. Yeah.
anyway.
There's really good podcasting to start this off.
That's right.
Almost
We're
as good as
hitting
that
the ground running.
Timberwolves Warriors game.
Hitting the
last
ground
night.
running. Yes. Everybody's in the dog days of the season now.
I'm getting a little annoyed of hearing them say that.
I
all the
know.
time.
I am too. We heard it again last night.
It's
a little
like,
bit.
yeah.
And here's the thing: there's still like 2+ weeks from the All-Star break. That's a significant chunk of games you
know.
still have to get through before you get to the All-Star break and get a little reprieve here.
Yeah. Like you could say that like a week before.
Yeah,
Like a week before, we're tired, you know.
and then
I don't know. This is
and you can-
hypocritical. We're
and
both
you
like,
can
oh, it was a
always-
late game last night.
Yeah, right.
We're tired, but they can't be tired.
And we're always, you could always feel it like the week before the All-Star
Sure.
break, like the game or 2 before that. It's like last day of school kind of vibes, right? But I think they're feeling it 2+ weeks out now. That I think they want the All-Star break to happen now as opposed to February 13th or whenever it is.
It's not right now.
They're what's the word I want? Not struggling. I mean, they lost 5 in a row. It's a slog right now for them to get to that point in the season, and the schedule is not helping matters. The postponement leading to a back-to-back here, segueing into another back-to-back with travel this time to Dallas, and then back for Oklahoma City, and then you're on the road for 3 straight. I don't know.
Maybe it is the dog days.
I don't know.
Maybe we're wrong.
I don't know what this team is going to look post Toronto, which is the game right before the trade deadline. I don't know what this team is going to look like. And actually, I was thinking about this the other day because the one of the topics du jour is the defensive intensity, right? And I remember 2 seasons ago when they did have the number 1 defense in the league, that they did go through a stretch in January where the defense kind of tailed off.
Yep.
And it also coincided with a point in time in the schedule when they were traveling all over the country. Like they were going east and they were going back west and then like back east. And I think I tallied it up. It was like 10,000 miles or something
remember
like that in
that.
20 days or something weird.
I literally think it was the end of January.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. So this maybe in some ways is the moment in the season where that sort of stuff, the defensive stuff just tends to slack. Maybe.
Yeah.
But the difference with this team is they hadn't really done the work in establishing that identity in the first place. They didn't to start the year, then they kind of
not
did.
immediately.
Not immediately the way that they did 2 years ago. So it's like, okay, so who is this team? Is it first 15 to 20 games? Is it next 20 games? And now we're kind of in this space where
it's not right to
who do you
take
wanna
averages in that either.
No.
Because you're not like, if you're one thing and you're another thing, you're not in between that because they're never really between that.
No, they're not. No.
It's interesting. Well, so what I wanted to start with was, as I said to you before, was even that type of win enough to get this Wolves at least out of like the clear funk that we've been feeling around this team outside of the everything that's been happening in Minneapolis in that game. I mean, they lost 4 games prior to that. They were in a funk a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
I said with Jace yesterday, I thought it during the first Warriors game, and I just feel it about, I think it's in the personality of this Wolves team, is when they do start struggling and they do get in these funks, the only way out is a win. It is the only thing that like gets them back to middle ground. And oftentimes it is against another team plays poorly and they beat them. And it's not necessarily like they broke themselves out of it, which is, I think, the case right now with last night. Last night is a kind of an egregious example of that, that Warriors sort of JV squad. But do you think that just winning that game does get this team out of the funk, at least to some extent?
No, I don't think so. Just because of the quality of opponent last night, I'm not gonna sit here and say that they're out of the funk. You think so?
I really think it's a weird vibes thing. I know that game wasn't good. I know. I mean, I'm not blown away by the Wolves' performance.
Yeah.
I do think sometimes this team just needs to not have negative reinforcement. And that in and of itself is something. That's the point I'm trying to make. I hear what you're saying.
I don't know. I want to see a complete effort.
Sure.
Before I'm gonna say that they're out of the funk, and 22 turnovers to me is not indicative of being out of the funk.
Yep.
Defensively, fantastic. They did what they had to do last night against the shorthanded Warriors team, and doing what you're supposed to do is not always what this team does. So on that front, thumbs up on the defensive front of not letting Golden State really ever establish anything in that game last night. But offensively, if comes back for this next back-to-back here, I want to see what it looks like, because they just have not really been themselves. And I'm starting to have a greater appreciation. I think I've always kind of had it, and intuitively watching this team, but just the defense does fuel the offense. And I think that's become even more clear as the season has gone on, that it starts on that end of the floor first and foremost. And
it's almost all that fuels this offense.
Yeah, it really is.
And
especially when you're trying to be more transition oriented and playing with pace and all that, it really does start on the defensive end of the floor. And there was a moment in the post game last night when, we were kind of just lobbing questions at Finch towards the end. And I think Jace asked one about the defensive intensity. It's like, why does this team forget that like defense is what fuels it? And Finch just goes, well, there's a lot that this team forgets. I thought it was funny. One of the most revealing moments of the season. There's a lot that this team forgets. And it's just like, it's like this team, to your point about like not seeing like the negative, not having like the negative enforcement, right? I think there's something to that in the sense of when they see what a good defensive performance can do for them, okay, maybe it sparks a good week or two of actual good defense. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe
I don't think that's a good thing to be like a part of your DNA. I'm just saying, I think it's that whatever you just described is a part of this team's DNA. I don't think it means that they're necessarily going to come out guns blazing in Dallas, or that they're totally ready to take on Oklahoma City on Thursday.
Right.
But it's a starting point. That's an important starting point, I think, for this team. Is, I put it like this: if they had lost and been on a losing streak, going into the Oklahoma City game, I would have a lot less confidence in their ability to start strong in that game, and which is probably a prerequisite of beating Oklahoma City. And they came in a 6, or if they lost to Dallas, 7-game losing streak there, I just, Oklahoma City might just overwhelm them in that sort of way. So I don't know. I mean, who knows? We're playing armchair psychologist here, but
which is what we do a lot with this team. Yeah.
Well, it feels a little more necessary with this team than many of the other Wolves teams that we've covered. Specific to the game, and specific to, I think, a theme of this team in 2026, we call it in January, it was the bench scoring, and they got a big performance off of the bench from Bones Highland. I think he probably played the best game of anybody on the team last night, and it happened in tandem with Naz playing pretty well. Playing well. I don't know. I said pretty well. Naz playing well, and I think we know the Naz and Bones duo isn't enough to solve this Wolves bench problem. It isn't like the full pie of that's not enough, right? Like that's not all that they need. But how much of the pie is it? How much of the pie can Bones and Naz be for the bench production that this team needs?
Well, if we're thinking of the bench in terms of, let's view it through the lens of the playoffs the last couple of years, where you had 8 solid playable rotation guys in the playoffs. And right now, I'd argue you have 6. So if Bones becomes kind of that 7th guy, that means the pie is 2/3 of the way to that 8. So there you go. That would be 66.7% of the pie for the bench is filled. Because I think that's what you're looking at right now. I'm looking at the bench in terms of what does it mean for the playoffs this season, and what do you get to go to, what rotations, who's on the floor in the second half of playoff games this season for this team. And right now, the only answer I can come up with is Naz Reid. Bones, and it'll be the kind of thing where Finch, you probably take a 7th or 8th guy, throw him out there in the first half, and you see if somebody gets lightning in a bottle on a given night. And if they don't, then Ant's probably playing the entire second half of playoff games. Naz is the only guy really maybe rotating in to give Rudy some minutes off, or Julius some minutes off, and Jaden's probably playing all of the second half, and Dante's playing most of it. Like, you could see that world where they are just playing 6 guys in a key playoff game right now because they just don't trust anybody else. So Bones, to me right now, Bones is the most likely candidate, and the key to maybe finding that other kind of scoring mix to get in there on a given night come April.
Right.
But the thing with Bones, and we noticed it last night, and I think it's become a thing, his 2 best games came when Ant has been out.
Yep.
And it's like, how do you get this version of Bones when Ant is on the floor with him? Because it clarifies things for Bones when Ant is out. It's like, all right, Ant's out. I know tonight I'm going to have to really score. I have the green light to just go ahead.
It's so apparent, right? Yes, that he's like, Ant isn't here. I'm playing this.
I now have more leeway to do this. When Ant is out there and he's playing alongside Ant, it's defer. It's try to set up the offense a little bit, but it's letting kind of Ant run the show. But when Ant's not there, it really clarifies what Bones has to do in those minutes. It's
when Ant is out there, it's kind of Bones's issues when he has them is kind of like Rob Dillingham's issues when he was having them earlier, where it does seem like there's a little bit of confusion about how much to distribute versus how much to look for yourself, you know, as a scorer there. I think with Bones, we're getting to the point where there's been maybe enough of these performances where it gets easier to kind of click into that gear for him. And, and then you can look back at the end of the season and can be like, oh yeah, the first half of the year, I was kind of trying to figure out where my lane was and how to fill it up. I think just having games like last night gives him just confidence, to be like, okay, I can do this, because I'm gonna think about it from him just mentally outside of like this season. You're playing for your NBA career kind of this season. There's a pressure on there. The this team needs point guard play. He's hearing that being reiterated to him all the time. I understand the confusion, as I do with Rob Dillingham, too. Some of the confusion there. They need more of that scoring pop off the bench. To the playoffs, you're right. The playoffs is the right way to look at it, but Bones is the type of player who I would, if I was just watching another playoff series or another team, I would go, well, that's a guy I'm a little bit concerned about it translating over to the playoffs, given how much more defensive matchups can be hunted.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? And so let's say all 5 starters play 38 minutes a game in the playoffs, which would be a lot. That's all. I mean, Rudy didn't even play 30 minutes a game in the playoffs last season. We know he had to play like 40, but if on average, those 5 guys play 38 minutes, that means there's 50 bench minutes available. And you give Naz 35 of those, if you can get to that. I mean, he would need to play the 3 to be doing that. That's still 15 minutes a night to somebody else off the bench in the playoffs while you're playing everybody 38 minutes. And it'll be interesting to see. I think the rest of the season, it's kind of a question mark to me is that something that Bones can be relied upon? I agree. He's the 7th. He's the next guy up in that grouping. But if we are looking at what they have for the rotation for the playoffs, we need to think about what the playoffs typically look like. And players like Bones, I guess it can go both ways. They can be exposed a little bit defensively, but they can also be, I could see a playoff series where like, whoa, Bones Highland, he had 3 games where he scored 20 points. He one of those guys who won him a game, So it's both, but it will be problematic if they get to a playoff series and he's problematic because they need to play at least a 7th guy, Right. Or the alternative is Mike currently, with this roster. Today's show is brought to you by Factor, and we know there are many of you out there who want to eat better, but you just have zero time, zero energy to make that better eating happen because grocery shopping takes time. Meal prep can take a long time, and that's what Factor removes for you. You don't have to meal prep. You don't have to follow lengthy recipes. It removes the whole problem, and in 2 minutes, you have real food done, and you'll enjoy the food. Lean proteins, colorful vegetables, whole food ingredients, healthy fats, the stuff you would make if you had the time. There are 100 rotating meals every week with Factor, and you choose based on your goals. Healthier eating, calorie management, more protein, whatever you're actually trying to do when it comes to your food consumption. Factor is also always fresh, never frozen, and ready in 2 minutes. It's not motivation to eat better. It's eliminating the reasons you don't. I really have used Factor numerous times in the last 5 years and think you should try it out too if you are looking for a new approach to meals. Head to factormeals.com/DaneMoore50 off and use code DaneMoore50 off to get 50% off your first Factor box plus free breakfast for 1 year. Offer only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. Make healthier eating easy with Factor. Today's show is also brought to you by Prize Picks, and you can now make picks on end-of-season awards over at Prize Picks. If you head over to the teams tab, and I found a few that are Wolves-related, Defensive Player of the Year. Of course, Rudy Gobert currently has the 3rd best odds. He is behind Chet Holmgren and Victor Wembanyama. How it works for him is if you wagered $10, you could win $43 on Gobert's DPOY future. There's 6th man of the year. Naz Reid had been holding down the top spot on that for a long time when I'd been checking over the course of the season. But when I looked at it today, Naz had actually just been passed up by Keldon Johnson in terms of odds. You can still wager $10 to win a little bit more now, $32 on Naz to win 6th man of the year. The teams tab is a new addition over at Prize Picks that allows you to be able to play at Prize Picks without needing to put together a whole lineup. Remember, you can also make picks against the spread over on the teams tab now as well. If you're sitting down to just watch basketball for the night this weekend, I think it's fun to look over at Prize Picks and put $5 or $10 on something, not to break the bank, but just to have something extra on the line while you're watching. If you don't yet have a Prize Picks account, you know the drill. All you have to do is put in the promo code Dane when you sign up. You receive $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks app using promo code Dane.
It is. I mean, the wild card, the rest of the season to me is what happens when TJ Shannon comes back, and can he kind of use this time away and out as a bit of a reset on his season, and maybe come back with a renewed focus and a renewed confidence, because that was the guy at the beginning of the season that everybody had penciled in for a significant role, significant production, and it just, through injury or lack of confidence, or the injury leading to a lack of confidence early in the season, just hasn't clicked in. And I do wonder if we're writing that off too quickly.
Sure,
that this is just a lost season for Terrence Shannon. I'm not willing to go there just yet,
because he's going to get an opportunity.
He's going to get an opportunity once he does come back, and because nobody else has really grabbed it, and he will be in the rotation presumably when he gets back, and we'll just see if he can, like I said, use this time as a reset, to reset his confidence, maybe see what he really needs to do out there. And I do think in general, like when you think of like Terrence Shannon, when you think of Bones and the kind of player that they are, and then you combine that with Ant, you combine that with Julius, who are guys that have the ball in their hands a lot, that play in isolation and things like that. And you think about the types of players that Bones and TJ are, though, they also like to have the ball in their hands too. And so it's really hard for those guys, I think, to find their niche, kind of playing off that, a catch and shoot spot up role. You're standing more in the corner, standing more in the perimeter. And I think it's just really hard for them to find that comfort playing next to other guys who like to have the ball in their hands like that. And I think that's one of the reasons why TJ Shannon was struggling.
It looked unnatural.
Right. It did. It looked like role. Right. When you go back and think about the kind of player he was in college, always having the ball in his hands, always going to score. It's a tough adjustment for a guy coming in the NBA to,
I agree,
to kind of downshift your game in that way.
It's funny to think about the conversations we were having about this team from a bench perspective in October before the season, because it was, if we could go back in time to that, the expectation was the starting lineup would be Conley, Edwards, McDaniels, Randall, Gobert, and then the three bench pieces was going to be Nasri, Dante DiVincenzo, and Terrence Shannon Jr. To be just like the bench was a season ago, just Shannon instead of Nikhil. And man, that's not what the puzzle has
everything was thrown for a loop opening night when we found out Dante was starting for Mike, and then it shifted the whole landscape of the rotations and the bench. And I still remember that opening night, Shannon was in the closing lineup. Do you remember that? He played so well that he was in the closing lineup that night against Portland, and he played really well. And so at least you came out of that Portland game thinking, all right, there it is. Like he was on the floor for the closing lineup, and okay, green light for the Terrence Shannon season. And then, like I said, I just think it's an adjustment when you play alongside guys who have the ball in their hands a lot. But I still think I think he's got a lot of talent. I think he's got a lot of stuff that this team can use and need. And obviously the drive to play in transition, he's got to get better defensively. That's a big issue for him. But again, maybe the time away will be good overall for him, instead of trying to play through it or be benched while healthy, if that makes sense.
Let's just do a little bit of injury talk. What I don't remember. When is the update on Shannon coming? Or
I don't know when we're due to get another one, but he was in a boot a while back. He's not in the boot. He hasn't been in the boot for a little while. So I'm not sure don't know when we're gonna see him. Probably worth asking for an update sooner than later.
Yeah, I just don't even. I think it was like in 2 weeks he'll be reevaluated. We haven't asked about that yet. So that's going to be a pivot point. And frankly, like I agree. Like there's some upside, and Shannon provides an opportunity for this team to go get something up to the bench that they clearly need. And maybe if he is that in this perfect world, then you don't need to go get that bench piece on the trade market.
But I think that's too late. I think
Yeah.
I don't think you can trust it right now, given the fact that even if he does come back and plays a couple good games before the trade deadline, I don't know that necessarily alters that you could trust it, and it alters your picture of what this team needs and or looks like. I think it's clear as day. You got to go out if you're trying to win this year. You got to go out and get somebody to add to the mix. And then whatever you get from Terrence Shannon the rest of the year is icing on the cake. But I don't think that would alter the picture overall.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
I just think any of the solutions, even on the trade market, are going to be somewhat of a half measure.
It is. No, it totally is.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So Shannon might be like a quarter measure or something like that. But you know what I'm saying? Like,
no, I know what you're saying, because you can't give up anything of significance and then if you're not willing to part with anything of significance, you're not really going to get a surefire player. Really,
you don't have picks.
Really, it's going to be. It feels to me like it's going to be the Monte Morris move of a few years ago, where you give up a second rounder or two to bring in a guy, and maybe he's in the rotation, maybe he's not by the end of the season. It's just kind of a cost efficient roll of the dice.
Yeah. Yep. No, I think. I don't think that's for sure the move.
Sure,
it's probably
right.
the most likely, that happens. Maybe that happens in addition to something else. But yeah, I mean, you just play around with it, like the trade machine. There's not that many levers to pull, and we keep bringing up like the Kobe White stuff, and every time I see a hypothesized Kobe White trade, I go, why would Chicago do that?
I know.
How could they not get more?
I have heard that the asking price is too high
for Kobe.
Yeah. That the Wolves just won't do it.
Yeah.
At what the price was. Well, I mean that was a few weeks ago. But if it stays where it is, I don't think it's going to be happening.
Yeah, I just think that, as in all hypothetical trade sort of things, it's like, is Dante your $10-12 million piece that's going out? Okay, that opens up a different horizon of players to get to.
Correct.
But if Mike Conley is the matching salary, even if it's alongside Rob Dillingham, just how much of a needle mover is that? Why would Chicago? I mean, I guess you get Rob Dillingham. That's it's not nothing, but I feel like we're talking ourselves like the collective royal talking ourselves a little too much into what the Wolves' internal roster assets can get them on the trade market, and ultimately we'll see that market is still defining itself. But to the point of Shannon, I think it's something we should be thinking about right now, and to some people that's dismal. That thought, because Shannon has been dismal thus far this season. But at least with Shannon, if you're looking at a glass half full, there have been things that have gotten in the way, whether it be the role and then obviously the injury. So I don't know. I think it's a pretty important thing the rest of the way. If Shannon comes back, that and it gives you something, that would be huge. I really think that would be huge.
And it's easy to forget because he hasn't played in 3 weeks plus at this point.
At least it was a Denver game. It was Christmas.
Yeah.
So a month. Yeah.
But it's still very possible that he comes back post All-Star break and is an important contributor to this team, because I just think of where he was and what the organization thought and the team thought of him in October. And I don't know that they haven't given up on it or anything like that, but it's just like, yeah, you got to see it. You got to see it. And I don't think it was a coincidence. Again, to go back to this point, I don't think it was a coincidence that in the middle of last year, when the team had all these kind of injuries and Ant included a little bit in the mix, that was when he really popped off first. Again, defined role, go be aggressive, go score, go do these things that you can do. And then when the whole unit gets back together, it becomes a little harder to do all that. Just trying to find your role within that sort of mix.
Right. Ant also missed yesterday's game. It's the 10th game of the season that he's missed. I think it was 4 games he missed with the hamstring earlier in the year. So we're getting a point where it's been like 5 or 6 games that he's missed with this toe infection maintenance.
Yeah.
How big of a deal is this?
Bigger deal than I thought. I mean, it's still lingering here in late January, and it was a problem in early December, right?
Yeah.
Like that was when or mid-December was when it hit.
I think so.
Initially, and now we're sitting here in late January, and he's a late scratch for a game in late January. Now, look, I don't know if what happened in terms of you and I watched him warm up yesterday.
We watched his whole warm up.
It looked perfectly normal, and he didn't look like he was in any pain whatsoever. He looked like he was getting ready to play. And then Finch even had his post-game press conference, and then it was after that they announced that he was questionable. And then like 15 minutes later, they say that he's out. So it happened very quickly, very close to tip-off, like abnormally close to tip-off than it usually is. So, and we asked Finch about it last night, and Finch just said that was kind of news to me. Like, just kind of talked to the training staff, and they're holding him out. And I asked, is this going to be a thing on back-to-backs maybe where you manage him because they have a back-to-back later this week? And he said he wasn't sure. So we'll see how they choose to play it here. If I'm guessing if that is the case where it's a back-to-back thing where Ant might sit one end of them going forward, I'm guessing he probably sits on Wednesday and plays against Oklahoma City, just knowing who he might want to prefer to play against. But who knows? I think
that's a whole factor in why I missed the game last night too.
You think so? Like another back-to-back coming up?
No, just of who he wants to play against.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't know that when he arrived to the stadium,
he didn't know that Steph was going to be out.
And Ant does his whole warm-up routine very early. We saw him out there doing his whole routine. Saw him talk to a Warriors player about being ready to go. Like, whatever. Gary Payton walked by. He's like, "Are you still hot?" And like coming off of that last game where Ant like didn't miss a shot. And Ant was like, yes. And like it was very much talking. This is at 4:45. Very much talking about being ready to go in that game, looking ready to go, full sweat, everything. I don't know. I don't think it's unfair to speculate without clarification that the fact that Golden State was going to be playing their JV squad, and the fact that he does have a lingering injury, I think all of these toe issue games are in large part a rest thing to let it like heal. Yeah. It just because it keeps kind of, or my understanding is it keeps kind of being irritated, and so the only way to get the irritation to go down is to
rest,
not be playing in a game. I think so. It's missed 10 games, where they're 47 games into the season. Right. So I think that means he is trending towards, he's not on pace to be eligible.
He's on the border. He's gonna on the border. He's going to have to, he can only miss 7 more games the rest of the season. And
7 of 35.
And still be eligible for postseason awards. So he's kind of on the border. I don't know how many back-to-backs. If this is a back-to-back thing, I haven't looked to see how many back-to-backs they have the rest of the season. But
probably not quite 7.
Let's call it 4 or 5, maybe. So if he takes those off, that's another 4-ish games missed. Yeah. Right. I don't know. It could be a thing where he's in danger. And if something else happens, he turns an ankle or whatever, that really puts you in danger of not making the postseason award cut. Which first of all, I hate this rule. I hate the fact that it's 65 games. I think that's too high. I get what the NBA is trying to do, because all NBA also affects your contract status for future years, which is one reason why I don't vote for the award after doing it for 1 year. I think it should be a lower threshold. I think you could still play 60 games or 55 games and
I
qualify
think Ant
for
is a
the
perfect
awards,
example
but,
of this.
yeah.
Does it feel like Ant has been absent this season?
No.
We've covered, it doesn't feel that
Absolutely
way.
not.
And maybe it's because they've been sporadically mixed in like this where he misses it. But it does feel like if Ant is trending towards not being eligible for awards, given what he's been doing, that the bar is not set correctly.
It's too high. 65 is too high. Like the fact that Jokic might not be available for these awards, I don't know where he's at the moment, but he's going to come back and still have a significant impact on the season and Denver's standing in the playoff race. And he'll probably end up playing maybe 60 games, 58 games, whatever it is. That's enough.
Right.
That's enough. It's too high. 65 is way too high of a threshold.
I remember I talked to Rudy about this one time, and I was like, what do you think about the 65 game number? And what he said to me, he goes, well, the first time I won Defensive Player of the Year, I didn't play 65 games. I'm looking at it now, it was 56.
Yeah.
I played 56.
Yeah.
And that was an 82 game, 17-18 season. Yeah. You know, he won Defensive Player of the Year. That year, missing 26 games. It wasn't even, I think that stuff was like factored into voters and should be factored in, you know, if you're making a
right. If
distinction as
somebody
the voter.
plays 82 versus 56, feel free to
Sure.
use that as a bullet point for somebody else. Yeah. So yeah, he could be in, I mean, all NBA honors, clutch player of the year. He's probably he would be the front runner for that right now.
Sure.
Trying to think if there would be anything else. I don't think
it's
so.
just like Ant is clearly an all NBA player this season.
Yeah.
I'm not saying MVP, maybe not even first team,
right.
but no way is Ant not one of the 15 most valuable, most impactful players of this NBA season. And that's going to be true for a couple other guys. Like, I don't know if Wemby's going to get there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, whatever. It's a little bit of semantics, but just looking at it today, I was like, wow.
And
only 7.
For the record, I did ask him about the toe after Chicago, and he just kind of waved it off and said, nothing to see here. It's fine. So we asked him about it, and he didn't really go into any detail about it.
Yeah.
So we have asked him what's going on with it, and he didn't want to go into detail.
And I don't think it's a huge deal. I don't think it's a huge deal. I think it's something that needs some rest, and I think it's a way to rest a little bit. I think Ant is frankly just at the point of his career where he's, what did Finch always say? He goes, resting games is has always been a little bit of a status symbol.
Yeah.
In the NBA. And I think
he's there.
Ant, like most stars of his caliber, it's a status symbol that they've earned. And there's most of the other guys at his level are playing around this many games. Which again makes the awards thing a little bit silly. Gobert bounced back. Last game looked a little bit more lively, was very strong at the start of the game. I mean, it was almost halftime. I remember looking at the stat sheet. He was the Wolves' leading scorer, like him and Bones. Just kind of doing the stuff that he normally does against bad teams that prevents the Wolves from losing to bad teams. Jason and I talked about that yesterday of like, that was missing last week. Rudy didn't provide that against Utah. He didn't provide that against Chicago. And especially to do it 2 games in a row, to not do it 2 games in a row, it made me kind of be like, what's going on with Rudy?
Yeah.
Because those are kind of his like, okay, cook, 18 rebound games, do your thing, be the reason that they won it. I found it bizarre that he lost, not that he lost them those games, but that he didn't win them for him. I guess Nurkic played well, Vucevic played pretty well in that game, but like, Rudy, you gotta do that. You gotta be the better one in those situations. And he wasn't. So I think it was good to see that kind of come back last night. Granted, against a team that doesn't really have a center, wasn't really playing any bigs or something. He did what he was supposed to do. But a good signal, I think, for this upcoming week that Rudy showed you something there last night.
I agree. If definitely felt like that stretch in March of last season against some of those teams that were tanking, and Rudy goes out and has 17 and 18. Like it definitely felt like that last year, like a real return to form. And I wonder how much of the defensive struggles of late are just he just wasn't what he was a couple weeks ago, and he just wasn't up to his usual standards. As much as we talk about it as a team thing, we know that he's the anchor, he's the driver of all this. And when he was playing at that all defense level, and people were starting to notice, the Wolves were playing some of their best basketball this season, and it slacked off a little bit. He got a little banged up and had to sit for that San Antonio game. Maybe there was a little bit of that in there too.
I speculated about that yesterday, and so I made it a point to ask Rudy. I asked Rudy yesterday if he was 100%, if he's 100% physically, because he had the contusion from the Houston game that forced him to miss the San Antonio game. So I thought it was somewhat fair speculation to be like, okay, he didn't play like himself against Utah and Chicago. Could injury be an explanation? And Rudy said is 100%. So, that's because that's not always the case. There's a lot of times, especially like this time of year, where guys are playing, at 70%. I don't think that's the case with Rudy. I think he just didn't deliver.
Yeah, and he will say, generally when he's not feeling 100%. So when he says he's 100%, I tend to. It's a little different than other players when they say that they're 100%. They're just saying it. I think with him, he means it. Yeah,
I would. Whether it's against Dallas or Oklahoma City, I think it's important for him to get at least one of those games to have another kind of offensive bounce back where you feel like part of the solution, not just like not part of the problem. Last night was problematic with the hands. I mean, that was his worst hands game in a long time. And I just think there's a little bit of a danger with of that lingering with him when he is dropping passes, that it would linger in his teammates' doubt a little. Like,
I totally agree.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that would be natural and that would be normal to be like, I literally just gave Rudy a chest pass and it went through his hands, as happened like Naz did to him. That kind of fast break sort of situation. How, if you're Naz, is that not when you're making split second decisions 4 possessions later? How is that not on the back of your mind? I think it's really important for Rudy to be mixing in impactful offensive games, so as to keep that confidence up in his teammates. Because when it doesn't work, like when it's not happening, it's loud how it's not happening. So I think that's important the rest of this week here.
I do. And I do think that plays a role in night to night basis. Is this a good offensive Rudy game? Is it a game where you can make that pass to him and make those split second decisions? I think how it goes early in a game really is indicative of what they will do later in a game. And it's hard, I think, for them to implicitly trust that if it doesn't go well in the first quarter, that it's going to go well in the third quarter. I really do. Sure. You feel that watching every game and seeing how they use him. If it goes well early and it looks good, then off to the races they go. They're going to trust it later in the game. But and again, thinking about it through the lens of the playoffs, if they're not involving Rudy on the offensive end of the floor in some of these matchups, they might be dead on arrival. Like it's because if you need to play Rudy 26 minutes a game in the playoffs again because you have some of these concerns and stuff, and we're already talking, okay, cool, you have Naz Reid as your 6th man. He can come in and play center, and do that. But you need Naz to fill up the rest of them, like the other minutes. Rudy has to be an over 30 minutes a game player in the postseason this year. That just has to happen. Has to be, yeah.
And it hasn't been the case in the playoffs recently. And the way to affirm that and to earn that and make that not even be a question in Finch's mind is to continue to be the offensive player that Rudy's largely been this season, playing with force on the interior, catching, making simple but strong finishes around the basket. I mean, still in the aggregate, I'm impressed by the step that Rudy's taken offensively this season, but the hand stuff provides doubt, and that's important to stomp out.
I agree. And I do think the other end of this, I think his teammates are doing a better job overall of seeking him out, involving him, talked about it a lot. I think it's been a good overall. It's been a good two-way street of Rudy leveling up and becoming more trusted weapon, and his teammates also recognizing that and trying to reward him in that sense. I think overall it has been a good progression for this season. The other part that I will mention with Rudy, the free throws. Yeah. He was 5 for 7 last night, so it was okay. But I wonder if the free throws are still an issue come late in the season, if he hasn't bounced back.
Yeah.
Is that going to become a problem, like a Hack-a-Rudy kind of situation in the fourth quarter of some of these games, north of the 2-minute threshold?
Yeah.
And can you have him on the floor in those situations, or are they just going to foul him and it gets in his head? And
the value of fouling even bad free throw shooters is not even really an analytical one, because even if you're a 50% free throw shooter, right, that's average of 1 point per possession,
right,
which if you're playing in the half court, it's not a transition thing. Like 1 point per possession's like pretty solid,
Yeah.
But the impact of fouling in the playoffs is it completely intentionally fouling in the playoffs is it completely disrupts the rhythm of how your team's playing offense. It's like, all right, they played offense, Rudy fouled, go down to it. Okay, they play offense, Rudy fouled, they go to it, and it disrupts rhythm. And I feel like with this team in particular, with Ant in particular, I feel like it would disrupt.
It would get on his nerves.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's a good thing to highlight, because obviously the free throw stuff has been an issue over the last month with Rudy. You asked him though at practice earlier this week, and he seemed very confident that he's making them in practice, and he's has been overthinking. That was his description.
That was his description. I forget what he said. He's shooting in practice. Like, I
think he said 90%,
something like that. Yeah. Obviously, game situation is a little different, but. And he traditionally has been 66, 67.
I have that up right now because I was looking up
for his career.
Free throw percent is 64% for his career, but it's 52 this year when he shot 67 last year, 64 the year before that, 64 the year before that, 69 the year before that.
Yeah.
It's a weird one. I mean, that's a mental, that type of dip again. It's kind of like, and now people are annoyed for me saying this, but I think part of what's going on with Mike from a shooting standpoint is mental, because you could lose a lot of different skills as you get older, but like catch and shoot, 3-point shooting is, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's a mental thing with Mike. And I think when the numbers deviate that much, it's just an indication of you're beating yourself in your head. And I think Rudy's doing that. At the free, I mean, he admitted as much.
Yeah. So got the rest of the season figured out. But yeah, and I guess last night was a decent enough step forward to that. It wasn't 3 for 7; it was 5 for 7.
Take it.
You take it and move on. But I do think that if it doesn't get better, that could also be a thing we're talking about in the playoffs as a potential
that's a good
factor in a playoff series.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Falling Knife Brewing Company, and I want to let you know that Falling Knife has a big Wolves-related night coming up later this month, where they are hosting a Wolves trade night on Saturday, January 31st. The Wolves play the Grizzlies that evening at 7 p.m., but at 5 p.m. the night begins with a collector-driven, community-focused trade night for Timberwolves and Lynx sports cards. This has been brewing at Falling Knife for a while, where a segment of the fan base has been meeting at Falling Knife to showcase sports cards. They've been at some of the live show stuff we've done there in the past, but this night is just dedicated to that community, 5 to 7 p.m. on January 31st for the trade night. And then, of course, the game against the Grizzlies will tip off at 7:10 p.m. It's a Saturday, so an easier night, maybe to make a night out of it. This is, of course, in addition to every other game night that has the sound on and games on the projector screens in the tap room at Falling Knife. Get out to Falling Knife this week, too, for games on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And make sure to mark down January 31st on your calendars for Wolves trade night starting at 5 p.m. Speaking of the playoffs, what do you think, like, the Wolves stock price is right now? Like, if I were to, if I would sell you a stock that says the Wolves would you buy a stock that says the Wolves go to the second round of the playoffs?
Yes.
Okay.
What's my rate of return?
Well, it's just, I'm more thinking of it from the standpoint of it was like to make the playoffs. That would be a great thing that'd be a great stock to have right now, because then in 20 games, if they go 14-6, they are a no-brainer to make the playoffs, right? If that's what the stock price is. I think it gets a little gray right now of this making the second round. I don't think that their play recently or their play largely this season indicates that more likely than not that this team is going to the second round. Now that's why I'm using stock price is if they go 16-4 for the next 20 games, then I would go, yeah.
Well, I'm basing my answer on previous experience, on what this team did a year ago, what I think the ceiling of this team could be, and what they kind of showed earlier this month. I think that team is still very much in there. So if I'm, if you're buying a stock, you're trying to play on long term here and play the long game and not try to just look at the last week and a half of how they've played. And I still think this team, for all of its issues and shortcomings, can win playoff series.
Right.
They have the capability to do it.
Yeah, we all do. I don't know. I've said this numerous episodes in a row now, but my thinking on it is it's just really important to get a top 3 seed.
Totally agree with this, by the way. Staying out of the 4-5 line,
right,
I think is huge.
Yeah.
Even if they're 6, it's better to me than being 4 and 5 as the way it's shaping up right now.
I would agree with that too.
Yeah.
Avoid OKC in the second round because they're going to be there. My concern for them or for any of these teams if they fall down to the 6 is just now you're playing to go to the finals. You have 3 really difficult series. There's importance. There is an importance in having that first round be easy, and I again look no further than the Wolves' recent success in the playoffs. Why were they so great against Phoenix when they swept them, 2 years ago? They had that week off before, right? And then why after that Phoenix series, once they swept them, were they so ready for Denver? Because they had an easy series and that time off. I think particularly for this team, it's important for that first round because they, even of having easy first round matchups the last 2 seasons, they've still admittedly ran out of gas by the conference finals. Yeah. And I don't think any of these teams will run out of gas by the conference finals if they got to play Houston in the first round, or if they got to play, if Denver's the 3 and you're the 6, like that's a tough
series,
tough first round series, for again, not just for the Wolves there. So not a good time maybe to be buying Wolves stock.
But isn't that usually the time when you should buy stock when it doesn't look like it should be the time to buy stock, buying low,
That's why I do this.
I do not day trade in my spare time. That's not something I'm good at. So don't take any stock advice from me.
Right. I'm also just part of the reason why I want to bring it up is I think our perception is going to change in 15, 20 games.
Absolutely.
For better, or if it's 15 or 20 more games that feels something like this, then it's then I'm just kind of out on the season. I'll still believe in their ability to kind of turn it up for a series or something in the playoffs, but I do feel like they kind of need that 17-4 thing they did at the end of last season for me to believe in them again. I mean, 17-4 is that's a really high winning clip, but I need, given what these last 2 weeks have been, given how they've shown again their floor and their weakness, for me to get back to where I was with this team, it's not going to just be a 5-game winning streak. I need like a more extended sample size that makes me believe in this team a little bit more. Because right now, I think they're better than the 7th seed or whatever they are in the West. Like, I'll buy that stock. I think they're not going to. I think they finish in the top 6 for sure. But I don't know. I'm just feeling very yanked around by this team of my understanding of what they could be or my understanding of what they are. And within that volatility, it feels like I would be putting on blinders to be wholeheartedly just believing that, oh, they're going to right the ship and come the playoffs, they're going to do that. To me, it needs to be a real chunk of time where they find who they are. Cause I don't feel like they really have a good feeling of who they are right now.
And that's why the defensive identity issues are so puzzling, because that is who they have been for 2 years ago and for a good chunk of last season. And it really has been like, this is who you guys were and are. This is how you became good. This is how you made conference finals runs. And it's like, did you forget that? Again, going back to Finch's line, this team forgets a lot. Did you forget how you won 4 playoff series in the last 2 years and what it took to get to that point? Like 2 years ago, they were wire to wire, pretty much the number 1 defense in the league.
Yeah.
Last season, they did turn up late in the season after kind of figuring out Dante and Julius's role halfway through the season and getting those guys a little more acclimated. There haven't been really any excuses for that this season. That, no new getting personnel acclimated, defensive scheme adjustments. Like, we thought they were just going to hit the ground running, especially on that end of the floor. And they did for 2 weeks in January so far. And can they recapture it? And we're talking about the dog days and how they're feeling it. I don't know that's going to come in the next 2 weeks. Maybe they'll surprise us and we'll see, but it doesn't feel like it.
What is if last season the answer was at this time of year figuring out the Julius and Dante roles and doing that for profit as they did, like what is that this season? Is it the bench?
Yeah, it's like we said, it's Terrence Shannon coming back. It's Bones trying to find that consistency of playing like he did last night and against Milwaukee on a more regular basis, especially when Ant is back in the lineup. It is Mike trying to get to the end of the season and find, try to be rested by the end of the season, and maybe in the playoffs he just saves it for, you know what I mean? Like just saves it for the playoffs at this point. Like, get Mike to the end of the season healthy. I think he should probably consider, and the team should probably consider, not having him play at all on back-to-backs. Definitely resting him for some of these. Because I think, again, you have to take a long-term approach here. And if Mike is going to be one of your options in the playoffs, I think it's best to try to have him well rested. So I think you're right. I think it is the bench, and who pops up from the bench. Can Jalen Clark find what made him so good earlier in the season? Does he recapture that a little bit? Because it doesn't seem like it's the same Jalen Clark that we saw earlier in the season either. So
I'll add one to that.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that they figure out and moves the needle, like Julius figuring out his role last season, would just be Naz having like his best 2-month stretch of his career. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like an incredible 2-month stretch, and we're looking back at it, and it is unambiguously, this is a starting caliber player, a good starting caliber player who just happens to come off of the bench. And Naz, as he's hitting his prime, like this should be right at the beginning of the prime. Naz breaking through and being something more than he's, even by his standards, ever been before. I think it needs to be something just like internally where, and Shannon's a good example of that too, where we have this expectation of what it is, and then it's a lot more than that. I think with Naz, we have this, I honestly don't think we have that high of expectations for Naz Reid. Like, we kind of accept the variance of his of his play, and he's good, and he's been productive. He's been having a good month.
It's easy to think
know
of
what I'm
that.
saying?
It's easy to think of it in that terms because he is coming off the bench.
Sure.
So you still think of him in bench
Right.
terms. We don't think of him now in terms of the contract that he's on, which is starter level money for a sixth man. So we haven't really adjusted our expectations because he still is coming off the bench.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's going to what this 2 month stretch that you're talking about. I don't know if it's going to come for him coming off the bench.
Yep.
I think there's a difference when Naz Reid starts and when Naz Reid is coming off the bench overall.
Just like there was with Dante DiVincenzo.
Right. If you give Naz Reid, if Rudy goes down, let's say for 2 weeks because of a turned ankle, and Naz is thrust into the starting lineup, I bet you we see a totally different Naz Reid for that 2 weeks
I think
than
so too.
we see coming off the bench. And then when he goes back to the bench, he goes back to that sort of player. But if he's in the starting lineup, I definitely think that there's a difference in mindset and his performance when he gets a chance to start versus when he's coming off the bench. That the volatility is there.
I get the distinction you're making. I think what I'm talking about of like aiming at the moon here is getting that type of performance from Naz that I do agree would happen as well if he moved into the starting lineup, but it coming off of the bench and frankly just playing more minutes. Like I'm just at the point.
I just don't know if that's going to happen.
Got a little Naz at the 3 last night. I just think if it were me, and even put the Naz at the 3 thing aside, if I were the coach, I would be looking for ways to be playing Naz Reid 5 or 6 more minutes a night, just period. You know, like he does not play enough, in my opinion, especially given, you know, how problematic this bench has been. I think Naz Reid can be a 30+ minutes a game player the rest of the season. And I do not think that would lead to a downturn in his average output. It's complicated given the bigs, and it would probably include playing some 3, and that has problems that would come with some problems there too. But given the limited sort of ammo of things we can even list off here, and if one of the answers is Terrence Shannon, you know, like I don't think this is a crazy one to ask for or to even expect of like, it's like be great, you know, no. And I know Sunday's game was weird, didn't score, but like that can't happen.
Yeah.
Zero tolerance on that. Well, the version I'm talking about, that never happens.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And I just think this team needs it given where the matches are.
To the point of Naz at the 3, you know, Finch kind of went into a little more detail about how he considers that, and he said a lot of it, more of it is on the opponent and matchup than it is.
Sure.
I think he said 60-40 was like more matchup than just trying to figure it out. But I think that's got to be something that they think long and hard about going into a given night. Is like, is this a night where we can get to Naz at the 3 and therefore up his minutes as a result? Or he checked in at the end of the second quarter with 3 minutes left, and the game, there's no scoring. The Wolves were playing terrible. Yeah. You know, I mean, the offense wasn't doing anything, and they won those last 3 minutes with Naz at the 3. He was out there with Rudy and Julius. They won those last 3 minutes of that half, 12-2. It was the first time the offense, outside of little bones here and there, it was the first time that really showed life. I know I'm been the one talking about Naz at the 3, but really my point behind it is however, Naz averaging like 27 minutes a game, 28 minutes. It's like, I just think he needs to be, I think the ceiling of this team is found in Naz playing more, period, in every avenue. I just think should be explored for that, because pretty much any extra minutes you give Naz are minutes you're taking away from Mike Conley, Jalen Clark, Bones Heinlein, you know, just the Terrence Shannon Jr. bench pieces there. And give me, I don't care what position Naz is playing, give me 6 minutes of Naz over Jalen Clark. I mean, I don't know. That's just, I think more times than not, that's going to provide them even given what we know about the non-Rudy defensive minutes with
Well,
two
what
of
I'm
them,
talking
yeah.
about is have Baron J or
Baron J,
Rudy
oh,
out
sure,
there.
okay,
I mean,
yeah,
when
yeah,
he's
yeah.
at the 3, it would be that.
Yeah. Mhm.
But yeah, even not in the 3 big lineup. Just
Yeah.
my point is just I think Naz should play more.
Okay.
I just period. Finding ways to do that, and maybe part of that is in a game less Julius minutes, less Rudy minutes. If again matchup to matchup, same sort of thing. Can you get away with the Reed and Randall minutes more so against a certain team? Okay, then lean into a little more there. I get where Finch is coming from. It's tricky. Like this isn't just. I don't think he's blowing it. I just think it requires intention. And to me, when you have a team with only 6.5 playoff caliber guys, give me the 6th guy to play more. I don't know. I don't think it's super duper complicated. What's going on in the newsletter this week?
Talking a lot about what we just talked about today, bench issues, kind of talking about it through the lens of the playoffs, and thinking about who the Wolves have faced in the playoffs. Denver 2 years ago, short bench. Wolves overwhelmed them with their depth. Lakers last season, JJ Redick plays the same 5 guys in the second half of an entire game 4. Wolves not overwhelm them, but overpower them with their depth in part and win that game because they had depth. And right now they resemble more of those teams than they do the team that they were then. So it's kind of just viewing it through and what maybe has to happen, or just kind of taking stock in each player on the bench and looking at maybe what the bench needs. Bit of a kind of a scatter shot all over. I was just kind of throwing thoughts out there this week in the newsletter. So if it's kind of all over the place, I apologize for that, but I was just letting out some thoughts.
I like the Denver and LA comp.
Yeah.
What? Wait, LA was the 3 seed last year, right? And the Wolves were the 6 seed in the first round. Okay.
Yeah.
And so they were the 3 seed last year, and they did not have depth.
Right.
And then Denver 2 years ago, same thing. When the Wolves beat them, they beat them because Denver did not have the depth to be able to play with the Wolves 8. So that's I'm glad with the whole bench conversation today and in the column that you're doing it through the lens of the playoffs, because that is more important than just right now, night to night with it. But it's a good comparison to the rest of the league. Teams have been sunk
because
by that.
I think ultimately your bench comes down to who do you trust to put on the floor of a playoff game for significant minutes. That tells you what your bench really is.
Sure.
And the Wolves have had a bench the last 2 postseasons.
Great ones.
And they don't have that sort of bench right now. And how do you get to it? Or what are the ways, or what does the front office need to do? Or what has to happen the rest of the season to find at least a 7th guy that will add to the rotation come playoff time?
And that's why the trade deadline is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
And see, the market comes together now. There's been the flirtations and those
it's a lot of posture.
Yeah.
Teams taking posture stands and we're not going to give up X player unless we get a first round pick. And a week from now they might be changing their tune.
Well, I know I've just
some of those stances.
Previous seasons I've talked to people, not just with the Wolves, but in front offices around the league, who go, we don't know how much guys are going to cost to trade for until February 1st.
It literally is. And this happened when I covered hockey. It happened when I covered the NBA. Literally the last 48 hours is when cards are on the table. Yeah. When teams are really willing to reveal just how much they're willing to make a deal for a certain player or what they're willing to accept. Yeah. It really
drop a price, raise a price.
It really does not happen until 2 days out.
Yeah. Yep.
That's a real thing that not just happens in the NBA, but happened in NHL when I covered the NHL as well.
Deadlines force
action. Yeah. They really do.
You guys can read obviously all of Chris's coverage at the Star Tribune. I also saw that Chip Scoggins interviewed Matt Caldwell.
Yes.
I've been waiting to
check out that piece.
Did you read that one?
Little history on I did a little history on Matt Caldwell's life and career. And how he ended up in Minnesota through a very interesting path, military, Goldman Sachs, all that stuff, and how he entered the sports world. So go Chip. Whenever Chip writes anything featurey, go read it because he's one of the best in the business.
Yep. So that's over at the Star Tribune, in addition to all of Chris's coverage, and then the newsletter is as I always say, is a free option for reading Chris. If you can't, swing a subscription, that's easy to sign up for. And if you're, I always say this with Jason, Chris, and everybody, they write stuff way before they come on the pod. The stuff publishes at night, and then this doesn't publish until like 1 p.m. the next day. So you could do. I mean, I don't want you to not listen to the podcast, but you could do both. I think they're supplemental there, and the newsletter is a great way to get Chris and all of our friends over at the Star Tribune.
I wanted to mention one other thing. I will be doing a book signing at the Barnes and Noble in Uptown.
Sweet.
Hold on. What is the date on this? February 21st.
February 21st. Okay.
We'll plug that. If people want to come out, get a copy of the book signed. People brought their copies to the store. The store wants you to buy additional copies, and so preferably we love.
You did such a good job of selling them last year.
Preferably you come out, you buy a copy of the book, give it a little gift, and we'll sign multiple copies, So come on out. That's February 21st. It's looking like we're going to be doing that. So
and we'll mention that. I mean, Chris will be on here numerous times prior to that, but that's good. Mark that down on your. That's right. That's like right when the end of the All-Star break.
It's they I think they play a game or two after the All-Star break, and then and then we'll be doing that. So February 21st.
Sweet. Mark that down in your calendar. You follow Chris at Christopher Hine on Twitter, and the next episode for us will be Britt and I tomorrow morning, Wednesday morning. And then Kyle and I are going to record late right after that Wolves Thunder game on Thursday night, because like I said, I'm going to Memphis on Friday. So we'll jam a couple more pods in here this week, and we'll keep moving through the deadline. I'll be in Memphis around the team as they kind of do get close to the deadline there. So that'll be an interesting weekend as well. I'm going to figure out how I'm going to do pods. My guy Chris isn't going to be there to do a post-game pod with me in Memphis. So I'll have to figure, I think I'm gonna be the only person there. So we'll have to figure something out. But yeah, a lot more to come, a lot more coming up in advance of the deadline. But until tomorrow with Britt Robson, he's Chris, I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hard so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah. Hope you dancing like